Between the small towns and cornfields of Ohio, a political wildfire rages that could determine control of the U.S. Senate. J.D. Vance knows that it gets even more intense from here. We met up with him in Perrysburg, Ohio, and if he's at all concerned about the polls, he's not showing it. How do you feel?
Look, I feel really good. I think that the country is not heading in the right direction, and people know that, and they're looking for somebody to take it in a different direction. So yeah. I think we're going to do well, and we're going to win.
What do you think at this point in the campaign is the most important thing that people should know about you, J.D. Vance, the man?
I guess just, I come from a working class family, and I'm never going to forget where I came from. I'm never going to stop fighting for the people who deserve to have a good life in their own country. We have to close the border. We have to get this inflation crisis under control. We do those two things, people will be way better off, and that's what we're going to do.
Together with Donald Trump Jr., it was then on to Marion, Ohio, and another standing room only crowd. What's been the hardest part of this for you? But then also on the flip side, what's been the most enjoyable?
I think that people way overstate how difficult politics actually is. I'm having a good time. I love getting to meet all these people and getting to talk to them. You get to hear all kinds of cool stories about what's going on in people's lives. Sometimes some sad stories, but sometimes, life is sad. It's important to hear the sad stories and the good stories. The only thing that is hard about it is I've got 3 little kids, and I love them dearly, and I don't get to see them as much as I would if I just stayed in my private sector life. And I think at the end of the day, it's worth it to try to give them a country that's worth having.
Why do I talk about the American dream? Because it's the story of my life and the story of my family. This state and this country have been so good to me. I was born in a poor family. I was raised by my mama and papa because my mom struggled with these terrible opioids, this poison that's now coming into our country at an accelerated rate.
You talked about the fentanyl crisis in the country several times today so far.
Sure.
What does it look like from a policy standpoint if you go to the Senate to try and do something about it, right?
Well, we got to cut down on the supply and the demand, right? And I think that we have to make much more investments in resources for mental health and for drug addiction treatment. It's still hard when people want to take that first step on the road to recovery. It's way too hard to get access to the treatment that they need. The second thing is you've got to cut the fentanyl coming across the southern border. My mom got a second chance. I know a lot of addicts who have gotten second chances. We're not going to give those second chances if we let this deadly poison come across the border today.
Say appearing compassionate, but it is not compassionate to let millions of illegal aliens into your country every single year. That's what Joe Biden is doing. It is not compassionate to empower the drug cartels.
What would Mama say at this point in the race?
What's the old Harry S. Truman saying? If you can't take the heat, don't stand in the kitchen. And I think that she'd say, get in there and do something, because she's, like a lot of us, sick of politicians who don't do anything.
Another enthusiastic audience in Columbus, this time the Fraternal Order of Police.
But my Democratic opponent says that he stands for Ohio workers. Well, you can't stand for Ohio workers unless you stand for public safety. You can't stand for Ohio workers unless you're standing for the workers who are patrolling our streets and keeping those streets safe. Remember and never forget what Tim Ryan said: law enforcement is the new Jim Crow.
I got to know J.D. Vance just personally because he sought me. A lot of times we have to go chase and ask for support. He came many a times and asked to meet. I really want to know the issues. Not many candidates do that. I honestly believe that he is who he says he is. He comes as advertised.
You have a person, Tim Ryan, running who has been and voted 100% with Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden since he's been there. We got to elect J.D. Vance to have someone who's from the outside, someone who will stand up to the nonsense going on in D.C., and we got to make sure we get them representing the people of Ohio.
From there, it was off to the next stop. In a tight race, J.D. Vance has miles to go before he'll know whether he's become the ultimate local boy done good, one born out of the hardscrabble life of Appalachia. Tom Basille, reporting for Newsmax on the trail in Ohio.